Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ironman 70.3 Victoria Conquer the Course webinar. My name is Meg. I'm on the marketing team here at Ironman. I'm here with Dan Smith and Susie Ernsting. Susie is the race director for Victoria, and she's going to introduce herself in just 1 second. Just a couple housekeeping items. If you haven't registered yet, I'm guessing most of you registered, but we are 80% full. So if you have friends who are thinking about it, please let them know. And they'll have a sneak peek because we haven't released that yet. So 80% full, get them registered. As far as this webinar, it's going to be recorded and everyone here is going to automatically receive a recording of it. I will also post it on Facebook and on the event website. And also, if you have any questions that are not answered during this webinar, there's contact info pinned in the Q&A. So just to back up a second, use that Q&A button on the top to ask your questions, and we will answer all we can during the webinar and at the end. Of course, the ones that are most relevant to this specific race will get answered first. So, and I think that's it on my end. I'm going to kick it over to Susie to introduce herself and we'll get going. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Meg. As Meg said, my name is Susie Ernsting. I am the new race director this year for 70.3 Victoria. I'm not new to Victoria, however. It was my very first half Ironman before it was an Ironman event back in 2008 or 2009. And I've either raced, worked, or volunteered for the event for at least 10 of the last 15 years, just about. So know the event intimately, and I'm really excited to work with the team at Ironman, as well as all of our local volunteers to make the event a success. That being said, I'm not an expert on Victoria like the gentleman sitting here, Dan Smith. He knows his course much better than I do, so I'm going to let him lead us through the course, everything that you need to know for the event day, and then I'll be over on the chat answering any questions you might have about this event. So we'll see you in May, coming up quick.
Thanks, Susie. Thanks. It's awesome to be here and be able to present to everyone who's interested in coming to 70.3 Victoria. As Susie says, I'm very familiar with the course. I actually live about 2 miles from the run course. I've lived here for 20 years, and I've got 20 years of coaching experience with Life Sport Coaching. I've been a senior coach here with them since 2006. I'm nationally certified with the Coaching Association of Canada, and I'm also Ironman U certified. I've coached many athletes to 70.3 Victoria and 70.3s and Ironmans around the world. I've also, like Susie, I've done this race many times, and even before it was a 70.3. I've won my age group here at 70.3 Victoria, and I've also won like 3 other 70.3 races in different places in North America. I'm an Ironman champion, and as well as being a triathlete, I lead a local triathlon swim group and a local run club. So I have lots of experience with this event and with Victoria as well. I'm just going to talk strictly about specifics to the 70.3 Victoria racecourse. Personally, I think it's one of the most scenic race venues anywhere. It's got beautiful calm waters. The bike course has everything. It's flat in parts, it's rolling in parts, it's hilly in parts. One thing about Victoria, it's located on Vancouver Island, which things are generally a lot quieter here than they are on the mainland. You can see this picture. This is actually on the bike course, and that's just a normal everyday. It's fairly quiet on much of the course. Stores on Vancouver or in Victoria, a lot of them close at 6 p.m. So not everything is open 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. 7 days a week. So in the middle of the week, 6 o'clock is when a lot of them close. Traffic is quieter, even though it's getting busier now. And typically in Victoria, 20 minutes gets you to many places in Victoria. So you just plan your timing and it's not that far. So if I have to go 20 minutes, that's kind of a long drive. Kind of give you an idea about Victoria. Victoria is also, because of the climate on the west coast of Canada, we get down to freezing, but it's also because of that, it's Canada's triathlon headquarters. And 1994, I think almost 35 years ago, the Commonwealth Games left a legacy. There's Commonwealth Pool. It's a very active and vibrant triathlon community here. So that's a little bit about Victoria. I'm going to stop partway through this to answer some questions, but I'm going to sort of dive right into the course itself. And we're going to start off with just the logistics of 70.3 Victoria. So we'll talk about some pre-race. We'll go with race day. I'm going to go into the swim. I'm not going to talk about actually swim pacing and how to swim. Lance covered that in a webinar a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to talk about sort of pacing quite so much on the bike or the run. We talked about that, I think, last week. So I'm just going to go into the specifics of the individual sort of disciplines and what you should sort of bring to race day. So basic logistics specific to 70.3 Victoria. Okay, first off, getting to Victoria. Victoria is located on Vancouver Island, which is just to the west of Vancouver. So in order to get here, you either have to fly, and generally to fly, you have to either fly through Vancouver if you're coming from Canada, or you can fly through Seattle as well. So plan your logistics of flying, give yourself lots of time to get here. Once you get to Vancouver or Seattle, it's only either Vancouver is like a 15-minute flight. Seattle is like a 50-minute flight. So they're very short and very small planes. So that's part of your planning. The other option is a ferry or multiple ferries. There are two ferries. If you're coming from Vancouver, there's the Swanson ferry terminal, and this is one of the ferries. It's probably one of the nicest 90-minute ferry rides. Like you go through the Juan de Fuca Strait, and you're going through active path where this ferry is active pass. It's just it's a really nice way to chill and get to Victoria. And if you're coming from Port Angeles, which is in Washington State, again, it's from the Olympic Peninsula, and it's about a 90-minute ferry ride from Port Angeles. I think Vancouver, this ferry goes every hour. Port Angeles, I think it's twice a day, but you can check for all that kind of stuff. So if you're coming from across the country, whether it's from the east of Canada or the east of the United States, you're going to come across multiple travel zones. One of our pro tips for what we use as a coaching, every time zone you go across, you should plan an extra day. So if you're coming from the east coast of Canada, the US, it's 3 hours ahead of Victoria. You should think of at least 2 to 3 days ahead of time. It just helps get used to the jet lag, gets used to sort of getting on the same sort of time zone as Victoria. One of the things we run into with athletes is they arrive here and they don't have cable. This is just a small little tip here for traveling when you're packing, thinking about is remember all your adapters for your watches, your computers, your Di2 and everything. And one of the things I like to do is to plug all these adapters into one of those small USB hubs. So then all you do is just grab the USB hub, you've got every one of your cables, and you pack it out in your bag, and you've got everything, so you're not forgetting anything. I actually leave a little sort of cubby with everything there, and they always stay together. And last but not least, third pro tip is nutrition. We have a fair number of stores, and there's running stores, there's bike stores, there's quite a few. It's a very active place. But if you have some specific nutrition product that you like, you're probably best off bringing it yourself, because trying to scramble around that last on sort of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, looking for some brand. I know that it's getting harder and harder to find gels. I know some of the running stores have the Mortan, which is on course, but if you've got something specific to yourself, bring that with you so you're not sort of running around in the day before the race trying to find it. So that's travel to Victoria. The race site. Race site is it's very compact, but it's a gorgeous. It's right on the edge of Elk Lake, Elk Beaver Lake. You'll hear both of those terms kind of interchanged. Elk Lake, which is the main lake, kind of runs into Beaver Lake, and they're basically the same lake. I don't know why they call it two, but that's the way it is. The race site is at the north end of Elk Beaver Lake. It's located in Hampsterley Beach, and as I said, the transition in the whole race site is very compact and very, very small and easily accessible. And it's also, if you arrive in Victoria pre-race, like on the Monday or the Tuesday, you want some extra time to get used to the course, it's perfect for pre-event training. The lake is, like, you have access to the lake. There's a beautiful beach right there at Elk Lake. You can get in and swim. The water temperatures are going to be anywhere from 16 to 20 degrees Celsius, which is 59 to 68 Fahrenheit. Last year, I think it was pretty close to 20. So people were even thinking about, I'm not sure if I even need a full sleeve wetsuit. So you can have, it depends on the spring, how our spring goes and whether we have lots of sun and not too much rain. Anyway, so the water temperature, great for swimming. The part of the course, Brookley and Oldfield, are really close. They're farmer, or they're sort of rural roads. And just recently, in the last year or so, they've reduced the speed limits on those roads to discourage commuters getting from one place to the other and speeding. So if you need to get time on your bike, then the roads are great for that and perfect. They're not sort of overly crowded and stuff. And then the lake, the run is around this lake. It's a 10 plus, just slightly under 10 kilometer trail around the lake. So you can run without having to worry about cars, without having to, the only thing you have to worry about is other people and dogs. And there's some bikes in places, but everybody gets along really well on the lake there. I'm just going to quickly mention it right now before I get to the next side. Because Victoria has such a small, compact footprint, there's not parking for 2,000 people or 1,000 people. So there's very limited parking. So at the actual race site, there's no parking Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And I'll get to that very shortly here. I'm going to say things pertaining to the course, but it's up to you to make sure you read your athlete guide. We're 3 months out from the race, so who knows, things can change, and there's often stuff happens. So make sure when they post that, when Ironman posts that to the website, you read it, you look at it through, and generally they'll cover, the race director or race announcer will cover everything in the race briefings during race weekend. So that's a race site. This is a map of Elk Lake, Beaver Lake. As I say, there is no parking at the Hampsterley Beach. So up at the north end of the lake, that's where the race venue is. You cannot park there. The parking is about 3 kilometers south of the venue at the Beaver Lake, Elk Beaver Lake, the regional parking lot. There's a big sign out front, parking lot there. And then Ironman does such an awesome job of this. I know when I first started doing 70.3s, and it said that there was a bus shuttle that you have to take race morning or race day. You have to take a bus shuttle to the race venue, and you get stressed out. But in all the years of racing with Ironman events that I've done, I was just trying to think. Honu was one for a while. Ironman Canada when it was in Whistler, and this race for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, they've always had bus to get from parking to the venue, and it's never an issue. It's always worked smoothly. It's always been on time. It's not something to really worry yourself. You just have to give yourself a little bit more time when you're leading up to the actual event itself. And you can see on the bottom here, Friday, it runs from 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, it goes starts at 4 a.m. and goes to the sort of the end of the day to get to your bike, or get from your car to the race venue. So it works well. You don't have to worry about. One thing I did see a bit last year is we're still only it's 3 kilometers. The trail, there is a trail, and I don't mean trail in a narrow and winding thing. It's actually a wide footpath. You can actually walk from the parking to here, but you probably won't want to do that race morning, but maybe on the way home, whatever. People I know have done that. So it's not hard to get from parking to the venue. So Friday and Saturday, I'll just quickly go through this. So Friday and Saturday is you have to, like any 70.3 and even Ironman events, you have to drop your bike off the day before. You can actually even drop it off on Friday if you want, but Saturday, and then there are security guards. You've got this beautiful lawn to put your bike rack on the rack, leave it there. But if you want to leave it a little bit later, you can leave it Saturday afternoon. And they have worked out that you don't have to use the bus service to drop your bike off. You can have your bike on your car or your van, and they have a pull through the parking lot where you drive up, stop, put your bike off, and then go drive off with your car. And it's just sort of like one of those drive-throughs, and your bike is secure, and then you can go back and put your bike into transition. So that I know works really well as well. So you're not sort of just having to put your bike on a bus or ride it to race site. So one of the key things when you are dropping your bike off, putting your bike in transition, after you've picked up all your race package and you've got your race wristband, spend time learning the flow of the swim to the bike and the bike to the run. And the beauty of this course is that swim to bike is probably 100 meters, bike to run, and then run then out to the bike is like 50 meters, and then last the other way. So it's such a very compact. But really want to do is, you can see there's probably 10 rows of bikes, and these rows are super long. So get an idea if you're on the 3rd row, and whether you're partway down or all the way down or on the right hand side or the left hand side, get an idea and get it in your mind how you're going to sort of find your bike. And the way it works is, when you come out of the water, you enter at this top right, and then you exit. Run out or bike out is over here, and the same thing reversed. You enter from this side when you get off the bike, and then exit this side here. So it's equal for everybody, and you're just running up and down the road. While you're there, Friday and Saturday, I think there are 5 athlete briefings. There'll be an event schedule and give you the time for all the athlete briefings. So the athlete briefings are mandatory, but they also have information that may not actually be in the guide. They also have information on how everything works, some of the rules that are very specific to this course, and they cover, and then they'll answer any questions that you may have at that time. So a good idea to spend at least visit one of the athlete briefings at this. And in conjunction with the athlete briefings, we have 4 life sport clinics. They're just mini clinics. They're about 30 minutes long, and we go over, if you've got last minute sort of questions about the swim, nutrition, pacing, which I'm not covering in this presentation, but you're learning. If you have questions or want to sort of just brush up on how many calories you should be getting, how you should pace yourself, all that kind of stuff. We cover all that stuff in these 4 clinics. And that leads us into this is an early race. It's end of May. For many of you, if you're coming from sort of the north of the US, in Canada, Eastern Canada, many people don't get a chance to get into the water before this actual weekend. So on Friday evening, this is something I think that started about 2 or 3 years ago. There's the Elk Lake 1000. This is a 1,000-meter or 1K open water swim on the actual race course. So you actually get a chance to get in the water, try your wets. This is one of my pro tips here. Sort of the biggest one. I think that's where people get the most anxious, is getting in the water and putting their wetsuit on. They haven't worn their wetsuit since last year. This is a great time to practice putting on your wetsuit. If it's water's cold, you may need to wear some earplugs. You may need to put sort of 2 caps on, get used to that cold water. But spend the time doing this on Friday or earlier, rather than hoping that everything is all going to work out race morning. So if you can, I know we've talked to numerous athletes who are very anxious about getting in the water before or just even about the swim. You do this open water swim, whether you do the Elk Lake 1000, you get in the water, and all your nerves really will settle down after that. So, but if you get the opportunity, it's great it's only 1,000 meters. It's Friday night. It's really not going to affect your swim on Sunday. So if you get the chance to do it, sign up. I say sign up early here on our presentation. I know it does sell out. So if you think about that you're going to sign up on race week, you're probably too late. It's probably already sold out. They limited it as a certain number of swimmers for safety. So it's an awesome way to start the weekend. All right, now, well, actually, before maybe I'll just take a quick break here before race morning. If there's any questions that are directed to Susie or Meg or myself.
Yeah, I'll ask one quick question that we got about getting to Victoria. It said you mentioned very small planes to Victoria. Would you recommend the ferry options from the mainland instead in terms of avoiding potential bike transfer issues?
I haven't, in all my times all the time that I've been here, I haven't heard of anybody having issues with that. No more than anywhere else. I guess if you were flying in late Friday, you may want to take the ferry, but it's not I don't think it's any worse than sort of flying into any other race.
Okay, great. And then one more quick question before you get into the swim. How is transition sorted? Is it organized by age group, by number, first come, first serve? How's that work?
So I believe this is something that's changed with Ironman I think it was last year, and maybe Susie could confirm, is that you don't get assigned a number prior to the race. Like now, when you go to check in with your ID and everything, and you go in, and they just give you the next number in line. Isn't that right, Susie?
Yeah, that's correct. You'll be assigned a number during package pickup, and then that's where your bike will be. Yeah.
So it's no longer sort of everything with your number. You no longer get your name printed on your number or any of that stuff. So it's just the next number along. So not age group or anything.
That's it for now.
That's it for questions. Wow, good. All right, race morning. This is so the thing here is planning ahead. I think the race start is 6 a.m. So I always like to plan back, do all my planning and everything back from 6 a.m. So first off, the race starts at 6 a.m. So that means I like to arrive at the race site by at least 5 a.m. So an hour before the race actually starts. It's you're going to run into friends, you're going to maybe have an issue with something or whatever, and so you want to try to get there. And then transition closes and what says to, so I think it closes at 6 as well. So but that's, you want to just check that out before the race. So give yourself time to drive from wherever you're staying. One of the things that when you're sort of booking your accommodations, you do want to try to, if you're going with Airbnb or whatever, you do want to sort of try and stay in the general area of like sort of north end of Victoria, Cordova Bay. If you're staying out in places called Langford or Mill Bay, I remember last year somebody stayed in Mill Bay, which is on the other side of the Malahat, which is a mountain you have to get to here. On a good day, it takes 40 minutes, but it's actually a long way when you're considering this island here. So making sure that from wherever you're staying, getting to the bus site, it's only yourself and your gear. Getting on the shuttle. The shuttles go very regularly throughout the morning. If you're staying in, I wrote this little note here, if you're staying in Cordova Bay or sort of the eastern side of the Pat Bay Highway, you can have someone drop you off at the corner, and that's a quick way to, and then they can go and park afterwards. So you can stop at the corner of Sayward and Pat Bay and then but I don't think there's any parking on that side of the road, so they've closed all that off, but you can get dropped off, and that's a quick way to get to the race site. So you're an hour before, you have to set up your bike transition. You've got to make sure your tires are inflated. There's usually a lot of pumps there. You don't really need to bring your pumps. I never ever take a pump, but other people do take pumps, and they pass it off to their family or whoever's supporting them. You inflate your tires, your nutrition, your hydration, your computers, getting them all on the bike, getting them all set. You put a towel or small towel or whatever on your bike on the ground with your bike shoes, your helmet, your run gear. All your stuff is all ready to go. Nutrition's on your bike. You can't put flags or balloons or anything like that, but you've counted or sort of see where you are along the line of the bike rack. So you have to set all that up. Then you've got to put your wetsuit on. Lots of body glide for your neck and for your arms and for your hands. This is a question I get all the time. Can you wear your heart rate strap underneath your wetsuit? And by all means, it's waterproof. It won't, if it's the non-Bluetooth storing swim Garmin strap, it just picks up your heart rate and does nothing with it. But if it's one of the swim ones, it'll save it for you. But you can definitely wear your heart rate strap underneath your wetsuit, and then it's all ready to go when you start your race. With this 70.3 Victoria, there is a pre-race swim warm-up area to the left of the course. The next slide, I'll show you a map of the course. So you can get in sort of at 20 minutes to 6, 30 minutes to 6, get your 15-minute swim in. Even if water's chilly, just getting in the water, getting your face wet makes such a difference to making your swim go smoothly. And then I'd like to get in early and swim 5-10 minutes, and then make sure I pull my sleeve of my wetsuit, making sure the shoulders are super free, so you've got good mobility on your shoulders. You feel good in your suit. Everything is all set, and then you have to get in the corral. And you don't want to leave that to the last minute. It's sort of kind of couched down. So they give you 10 minutes, 5 minutes to the race start. But there's 2,000 to 2,500 people to get in the water. And the corral, you can see it on the left-hand side here. It's actually fairly narrow. and it's fenced in on both sides. So you have to get into the corral. It's just like many of the running races. There are signs. You can sort of see a sign right here. It says under 30, or this one would be 35 to 30 minutes. And so you go in the corral, you get in the spot in the corral where you finish, where you feel you will finish your swim. So if you're a 35-minute swimmer, if you're sort of get there late and you end up having to be in the back of the 45-minute swimmers, it'll mean you'll be swimming through people, and it can be frustrating. And the same thing is if you're a 45-minute swimmer and you put yourself up near the front, you'll get swum over the entire time. So be honest about how fast you're going to swim the 1900 meters, 1.2 miles, and put yourself in the corral in that same area. And that means you're around other swimmers who swim the same sort of speed as you, which is good. Kind of makes it much more comfortable. And it takes about 45 minutes, I think 35, 45 minutes to get everybody in the water. So some of the people towards the back, there'll be people finishing the swim before everybody even gets in the water. So we've got that. All right. The swim itself, it's usually super calm, super flat. You can see the buoys are lined out in a straight line from the beach here. Just on the bottom right here is a map. I didn't really sort of get into the swim map. It's a pretty straightforward. You go out, you go across, and you come back. And on the left-hand side of these buoys right here, all over here, that is your warm-up area for the swim. So you can do the swim warm-up over here, get in the corral, and then the main swim leaves one beach, goes straight out, almost 900 meters, goes across 50, 60 meters, and then comes back. And then the finish is about 100 meters to the, if you're standing looking out, it's 100 meters to the right of where you started. Buoys are on the right, the yellow buoys all the way out, and you can see they're numbered. So they're numbered all the way out. There's orange buoys on the corners, and then come back. So one of the things I like to do when at the start, you can see at the very far end of the lake, it's all trees, but there is this boathouse on the sort of straight in front of you. So if you need something to sight from, you want to kind of keep sighting to sort of every 10 strokes, every 20 strokes. If you're a good straight swimmer, you can sight that boathouse on the way out. When you get to the turnaround, this is like you've been swimming for the 800 meters, 900 meters. You get to the turnaround, you go across the top, and then you take another look back towards to the finish of the swim. And it was like, that's a long way. So, but it is only halfway. It's sort of this turnaround right here is halfway. So if you're a 40-minute swimmer, that's going to take you 20 minutes, and then it'll take you 20 minutes on the way back. On the way back, just think about following the buoys, keeping the head down, trying to avoid having to look up every 2 seconds because am I closer? Am I closer? Am I closer? No, you're just try to keep it steady, try to keep in a good rhythm, keeping your stroke rate up. One thing that I find that helps is say count 20 strokes and then kind of keeps you focused, keeps you engaged. One of the things on the way back, you will be swimming more into the sun, and the swim arch is black. So when you're on the other side or sort of at the turnaround buoy or even halfway, it's really, really hard to see the arch. But if you look at, if you've done a practice swim out there, you'll see that there's a beach that you're swimming towards. That's to the left of the beach you started from. And it kind of opens up, and then that's where the transition is. So just take your sighting off of that sort of open area. And if you can see a tall tree, you sight on that. And with swimming, you just keep swimming and you keep swimming, and you'll swim to the beach, keep swimming till your hand touch the bottom. And actually, I even like to take one more stroke further, and just to make sure you get a little, because I'll often see people as soon as they even see the bottom, they stand up and their wetsuits, they're standing into the weight and trying to get out of the water when you're sort of waist deep in the water. I know you want it to be at the end of the swim, but if you swim until your hand touches the bottom, then it's only like knee deep or thigh deep. So trying to swim as far in as possible means that it's much easier to get out of the water and start running to your bike. So you can see this is the arch from last year. It's a black transition. You've swam right to the water. You've stood up. When you're still in the water and you're running, all you do is you just take your goggles, put them on your head. Don't take your cap off and your goggles off and then put it in your hand, because then you have something in your hand. So just take your goggles, put it on your head, stand up, start running across the beach. It's a beach, and then I believe it's just grass, it's smooth grass all the way up to the transition. It's short. It's like less than 100 meters. So as you're running up through this first transition area, strip the wetsuit to your waist, leave it at that, and continue running. And it's great. You're running through this whole sort of gauntlet of spectators and people and friends and everything. They're cheering you on. And as you run up to your bike, you're counting the number of racks and remembering that I'm the third rack and I'm halfway down on the left-hand side of the third rack. And then you run down. I like to put a little bit brighter towel so I can see that, because everybody's bike has black wheels and black handlebars. So if you've got something that's a little different, that it'll stand out. So that sort of helps, gives you a little sort of tip on how to find your stuff. Visualize removing your suit, putting your helmet on. Remember, your helmet goes on first, and then you can do everything else. The mount line, you can see here. There's the transition area. You've got the out arch. The mount line is like 50 feet from the bike out. Here's a little tip too, making sure your bike is in the right gear, so that if you finish your bike ride and left it in the big ring and most of the way down on the back, it'll probably be in too big of a gear. So making sure your bike is in the right gear before you start. It's for the middle group of the riders and the swimmers. It's crowded and hectic. There's a lot of people. You can see there's people going, doing stuff. We stood here last year and it's just amazing what people are doing. So think about being smooth, focus on being aware of what's going around, just getting on your bike and just getting going. Try to have both hands on your bars. I've seen people with food in their mouth, bananas in their hands, all that kind of stuff. Try to avoid all that. Just get on your bike and get going. And we'll get to the bike map in just a second here, but there's about a kilometer on this road here. So just use this road, this first little road, to get into a rhythm, and I'll get to that. So this is the bike and the bike course. Here's the map on the right here. This is transition right here, right to the north of Elk Lake, and this is Brookley. I've said that word, Brookley. It's about a kilometer long, or maybe it's 2, but just use that part just to sort of get yourself going, to settle down, to get your heart rate down a little bit, to see where people are. One of the things, if it's really cold, if the water is on the colder end, you may want to put socks on first and not leave your shoes on your bike. I know I tried that once when it was really cold, and you can't get your feet in to your shoes if you're comfortable doing that, or as more comfortable doing that. So think about putting your socks on, shoes on, and then running to the mount line if it's cold. That's just a little tip there. All right, quick little thing here. The bike is one large loop. It's open to traffic, but much of it has a bike lane and it's fairly quiet. There are 3 aid stations, one at 20 kilometers. So this first little bit through sort of a little bit more suburban area. First aid station's at 20 kilometers. The next aid station is past all the flats at 45 kilometers. And then the third one is on Wallace at 70 kilometers. So the big thing with this course here is that most of the run, the first half of the bike is flat, and then the second half of the bike is where all the hills begin. And then the hills really begin is this one here, Willis Point on West Saanich Road. And it's like from 40 to 75 kilometers here is there's 300 meters a gain. And then in the last 15 kilometers or 10 miles, there's almost 700 feet of elevation gain. So all your hills, as you can see here, most of the hills are up and down and they're towards the back end of the course. Quickly get through this. So you're getting your calories in on the bike. You want to make sure you have like a reminder. Some people have beeps. I use like every 7 minutes, a couple hundred, 250 calories, 750 milliliters per hour. Trying to just be smooth and relaxed on this hilly and undulating course. Keep even pressure. You're riding to a power to heart rate and try to keep steady that. Don't ride your own race, not what other people's races are. Keep even pressure. You're keeping even pressure on the pedals, whether flat or climbing. Trying to have a good cadence, 80 to 90 RPM. And in training, the hills are at the end of this course. So at the end of your long rides, you may want to, or you should do some good hills at the end of your long rides. Willis Point Road is, I think it's about 100 and just over 100 meters of climbing, but it's only 12 to 15 minutes long. So if you keep a steady climb up that, you'll be fine. Just got a quick little visuals. You'll see all this in, so if you want to review it later on. Cordova Bay, this is where the first aid station is it's fairly flat through that section. The Martindale, sort of 26 kilometers to 20 to 38 kilometers is all just kind of rolling to flat. When you see this sign here, this town of Sydney, you'll be all through farmland for the first little bit. And then when you get to Sydney, that's when you know when the hills are going to start. But even though there's some hills, it's such a beautiful, beautiful spot. Tatlow is like there's horse farms and it's just beautiful trees and green and lush. You'll end up sort of down by the water, and this Downey is a short but steep climb. And then this is Willis Point, which is at 75 kilometers. And that's the long climb that takes about sort of anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. All right, and if you're to climb, maybe even a little bit less or a bit more, depends on how fast you are. All right, that's the end of the bike. I know I kind of rushed through that, but it's amazing how fast time flies here. So do we have any questions on the bike before I go any further?
Yeah, we actually have a couple on the swim as well.
Okay.
So wetsuit strippers, are there wetsuit strippers at this race?
No.
No. Okay.
Practice taking it off yourself. Just pull it down.
Okay. And then as far as warm up swim or practice swim before the race, outside of the group event that you're going to talk about at the end, and outside of the Elk Lake swim, is there a way to get into the water and practice before the swim?
On race day?
No, I'm sorry. Leading up to the race, and then in the.
Oh yeah, that beach is open all the time. Like that's a beautiful beach, and you can swim whenever you want. And there's actually 3 other lakes in Victoria you can swim in too. There's no problem with public access to swimming in at these beaches.
Great. And then this one's for Susie. The bike course for last year's triathlon was diverted due to construction. Are there any major bike course changes expected this year?
Yeah, so I answered this one in the chat as well. At this time, there's no anticipated bike course changes. So the adjustment that the team made last year, we're going back to the original course. That being said, there's 5 or 6 different permitting authorities along the 90-kilometer route. We're in continual talks with them. So if by chance there is any construction that is planned that they have not told me about yet, we'll be sure to make sure everybody knows well in advance. But we're just going through all of those processes right now.
Thanks.
And it's always straightforward. If it changes, if there's people get all worried about construction, they just move it around. There's plenty of ways to get around all this stuff. And race organizers always do an awesome job of sorting it out.
Okay.
All
We're
right.
good.
We're good. All right. So as you're finishing up the bike, you come back in the same way you went out that Brookley Road. There are the last after Willis Point. There is one more hill on West Saanich, which is, I think, after you've done Willis Point, you've got another fairly long hill on West Saanich Road, which tends to take a little bit out of your legs. So make sure you leave enough for that, and then you come back in to transition the same way as you went out on Brookley Road. Remember, so it's a short transition, short run to your spot. Be purposeful. You've just finished the 56 miles or 90-kilometer bike, so the legs are going to be feeling it. So just be smooth. Don't rush. Go back to your spot. Rack your bike. Then you can take your helmet off, and then that's where you pick up your number belt. You'd have your nutrition, visor, and a hat. If you're going to wear socks, put your socks on. If you hadn't already had them in from the bike, and think about going out of transition. And initially, you really want to. One of the sort of the best pro tips is think about cadence. Don't think about pace coming out of transition. Just think about getting the legs going, being tall, running sort of with a tall spine, tall head, using your arms, and getting those legs going out of T2. Now we'll go to the run. So there is there's a 10-kilometer trail that runs all the way around Elk and Beaver Lake. And as it's only 10 kilometers, there's a little spur at about 7 kilometers into the run that you have to run up and run out and back to get the full distance out of the run here. Transition is at the top. So it's 2 loops. It's flat, mostly flat. There's 2 tiny little hills in the whole course, but everything else it's running around the lake, and it's farmlands, or was farmland leading up to it. So it's pretty. There's no real big elevation changes. It's hard packed dirt. There is one section of about maybe 250, 300 meters where it's paved. Everything else is like dirt roads, but people ride people come through there on their bikes, and you can ride. It's hard enough that you can ride a road bike on that trail. So it's pretty solid. Couple things to note. The first thing, if you're going to use your Garmin watch and use it for pacing and everything, the first 2 kilometers out of transition, sort of to the left here, out to here, it's all twisty turny. That's about one of the narrowest parts of the course. There's also big trees. The Garmin is not probably going to be very accurate. So people they go, oh, I'm going so either fast or slow. It's probably not accurate because it's so twisty. There are the CRD park have markers every kilometer around the whole race. So oftentimes if you're talking to a local, they'll talk about the kilometer markers. They're all marked, and that's what we talk about. The only problem is with those kilometer markers is they're not 100% accurate either. So really the only one we ever count as accurate is between the 7 and 8 kilometers, which is sort of this area right here. Ironman does put kilometer, like how far you are into the race, around the boards all the way around the lake, around the course, so you'll know where you are. So 2 kilometers, it's narrow. This is a really wide sort of trail road for after the 2 kilometers in. This whole side of the lake is covered in trees, but it's wider and sort of flatter than the other side. We have those two marker posts, the 7 and the 8. They're super accurate, and then it's covered all the way till about the 8-kilometer mark, which is sort of around right here, and then it opens up right here. It's much more exposed. So you got good shade all the way around the sort of west side of the lake, a little bit opened up here, more shade, and then it is opened up right here as well. It's quite narrow along the lake. There are 5 aid stations. I'll put them here on the next thing. First aid station is right as you come out of transition, so it's at 1 kilometer into the race, or sorry, 0 kilometers into the race. The next one is over here, which is about 2 kilometers into the race, and then you have about 4 before the next one, which is at 6 kilometers, so down the very far end of Beaver Lake, and then it sort of winds around the bottom of the lake here, and then there's the little spur, and this is kind of a double whammy. I've got it written there at 7 kilometers in. You've got to go uphill to a U-turn, and then there's an aid station there, then you're back down, and then there's another little hill right here, and then it's fairly flat. And the third aid station, or I think the fourth aid station is at 9 kilometers, and then then you're back to the start again here. So this is the last little bit along the course. So you've got 5 aid stations, the T2 exit at 2K into the course, 6K into the course, 7.5K into the course, 9K into the course, and then all the way, you'll get them all around. So you have that one section of about 4 where there's no aid station because you just can't get to it. And refer to your athlete guide of sort of what's on course, water, Gatorade, More10 gels, all that kind of stuff on the course, or you bring your own. This little section right here is quite narrow, so you want to be careful with traffic, and it's also quite exposed, so if you probably want to wear a hat if it's a nice sunny day. As you're checking your bike and as you're sort of setting things up on Saturday and before the race, visualize they have the finish arch. It's kind of like a little right-hand turn at the very end of the second loop, and visualize yourself running down this chute. Congratulate yourself. There'll be everybody cheering. It's just an awesome feeling finishing off that off the race. And I'm with Life Sport Coaching, and we'll have a tent there. So if you've attended the seminar, this webinar, and come by and say hi, share your story from the day. We're happy to hear how it went. And I'm also doing a one-day clinic May 11th right on the course. So I'll give you some inside tips, some more stuff, and you'll actually get to see it if you can make that clinic. So I know I kind of talked fast, but there's a lot to cover. I really appreciate everybody that came out today. So thank you for joining us. It's always fun to do this. I've loved to share my information and insights into the course. So if you have any more questions, let me know.
Hey, Dan. Yeah, we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
What are the road conditions like on the bike course?
It's a bit of everything. There's just a second here. So here are two slides. Like the pavement, and we don't get the crazy colds and freezing that we get in, like you get in Eastern Canada. I mean, our road conditions here are pretty good, and you can see out of these 3 slides, there's 3 bike lanes. These ones are more rural. There's only 1 bike lane. So, I mean, you have to keep your wits about you, and the road is open. So, but in general, our roads here are pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think for the most part, the roads are great. The bike course team will mark any hazards with bright orange, yellow duct tape along the road. And if it's something major, they'll patch it as well temporarily for the race weekend. So at least compared to where I live in Vancouver, I think the roads in Victoria are much nicer.
Okay. There is only one spot. I'm just gonna go back to the bike course here. between 4 and sort of 5 kilometers into the bike here. It's on Old West Saanich. There's a steep downhill and it's kind of rough. There's always bottles and flat tires, but I think they've actually smoothed it out. But they're always repairing roads and fixing the roads. There was a section over by the Heritage Acres where there was we had to go on a bike path. They've actually fixed all the roots that were coming underneath the pavement and make it really bumpy and stuff. So overall, it's good.
Great. Let's do one more question and then we can wrap it up. We have some first timers on the call. They're wondering if you have any just good tips for first timers for this race.
Get your training in. That's important. You can't. And I think probably the biggest one that comes is, get your training in. Make sure you have hills on the bike. Make sure that you do good bricks. The swimming sometimes gets a little bit tougher. As I mentioned during the swim segment there, it's hard to get to get in your wetsuit and get at open water before. Like a lot of places, they don't have the access to water or to lakes like we do. But if you can get in your wetsuit in your pool before you come to Victoria, to like swim in your wetsuit, to make sure that you know how to handle the wetsuit. That's an important one. Because you don't want to trust that things will be okay. Like if you haven't done something, you don't want to trust that, oh, race day, it'll be okay. You have to make sure you've done something in training. Everything in training will reflect how the day is going to go. So be prepared by trying to get in your wetsuit beforehand, riding hills on your bike, practice riding in your aero bars, practice eating. That's another, that's a big one. Make sure that in practice you use some of the knowledge that Lance shared in the nutrition seminar, that you prepare, you make sure you get your calories in, at least 250 calories an hour during your training rides on the bike, and maybe 200 on the run.
I would say my other point to add on to Dan too is I find that people are most nervous about the open water swim. Like Dan said, rarely in Canada can you get in a lake before that time of year. It's normally my first open water swim. So sign up for the Friday night swim. Anybody I know who's done their first race in Victoria, if you can get all the nervousness out on Friday night, you get used to swimming around other people, you get used to sighting the buoys, you get all the nervous energy out on the Friday, and then you're ready to go Sunday morning. And that's one thing less to worry about on race day.
And that's probably the biggest thing that people are worried about, is the open water swimming. So definitely do that.
And the Friday night swim registration is not open yet, but we will be doing that soon, and we'll share it with you via email, social, website. You won't miss it. And Dan, did you talk about the group swim you guys had planned, or didn't you have a group swim?
Which group swim was that?
Oh, sorry, Juliet.
I think at the beginning. No. Yeah, at the beginning, Dan, you mentioned that you run a swim group out of Victoria, and there's a couple of people in the chat that were interested to learn more about that, maybe where it's located, how to sign up, where to find out more info.
Oh, that's just, that's a local, I coach at a pool so yes, you can sort of, if you send me a note, I can help you with that. And then there is a Friday morning swim, and yeah, just email me about that as well.
Great. And that if you're looking for the contact info, everyone, that's at the top of the Q&A panel. All of the contact info you need is in there. So just feel free to ask them questions that way.
Yeah,
sorry, Dan, what did you say?
Oh, I'm happy to answer any questions people have about the course.
Yeah. This webinar is recorded, as I mentioned in the beginning, and it will be sent out if you're on here, and it'll also be on the website in the next few days. One more thing, as we mentioned in email, one person who attended today will be drawn randomly selected for a free 30-minute one-on-one on race weekend with one of Life Sports' amazing coaches. So we will let you know via email if that's you in the next couple days. And yeah, that's it. Anything else, Dan, Susie?
Thanks. I just want to thank everybody for coming on and listening to me chat about the Victoria 70.3 course.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody at the end of May. Happy training, and we'll see you shortly. It's coming up quick.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.